Hi everybody, Josselyn here. So we're going to do a short-ish, not too short, but short-ish class today, focusing on the psoas and the glutes and their relationship. So primary goal today is to lengthen the psoas, get the rib cage to be in better alignment with the torso, and that helps our glutes to turn on properly. So just a couple of the concepts that we're going to be working on today primarily, I'm going to stand up to show you, is just differentiating when the leg is going behind us, because that will get the glute to kick on. And is that happening by the spine going into extension, or is that happening actually from the hip extending? So you can see I don't have very much. My glutes are kind of weak, and my low back tends to want to live like this all of the time. So this is a super challenging but beneficial class to my body, but also to anybody's body, particularly if you've been sitting a lot, because that really shortens the psoas and kind of smashes those glutes flat so they don't really do anything. So let's get going. You're gonna need a yoga block. We're gonna come down onto the mat. And we're just gonna check in a little bit with lengthening the hip flexors, getting a little bit of movement through the hip joint. So you're gonna take your feet about shoulder distance apart. I'm taking my arms into a soft goalpost position because that feels nice and relaxing on my chest. And I'm gonna take a couple breaths here. And without feeling my abdominals contracting at this point, I'm just gonna see in this quick little check-in how much I can give into gravity, and that will allow my rib cage to soften back. So we're definitely gonna be using abdominals in just a second here. But what I wanna try to do is send the signal to my body, particularly my two psoas muscles, that they're gonna chill a little bit for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So letting the entire rib cage fall back and letting the sacrum widen. And I'm just gonna start a gentle windshield wiper of my knees from side to side. And I'm not forcing anything to happen, but what I'm thinking about is seeing if when my knees go, does my ribs want to go with my knees? And just giving my body a gentle, no thanks to that happening. Really just seeing how far, particularly the knee that's dropping into a more extended position, how far that leg can go without the ribs getting involved. So that's kind of one of the telltale signs of how active your psoas is. Mine's very active all the time. And then just staying on one side. So right now I have my knees knocked over to the left. My right knee is knocked into the midline. I'm going to extend my right arm on that diagonal and just breathe a little. Letting the body get heavy. And then knees over to the other side. Left knee's knocked into the midline. I'm going to allow my left arm to reach on the same diagonal as my left knee is. So I'm creating a long diagonal through the body and just allowing that entire hip flexor complex to just unravel. Okay, from there, knees back up and lift my pelvis up, get the block out. I'm going to roll to one side, come up. And then I'm going to bring the block underneath my shoulder blades. So it's a nice little shelf. I'm going to take my legs long. I'm going to allow my hamstrings to spread into the mat. If you've checked out some of my other classes, I talk about this quite often. So really making sure that the hip flexors are soft, your pelvis is in neutral here, and the legs are long and very heavy. I'm going to interlace my hands behind my head. Inhale. Take a nice extension up and over the block. Perfect time to make sure it's just right. Needed to move back just a little bit. And exhale, let the ribs soften back a little more actively this time. And notice, does your pelvis want to tuck? Do your quads want to tense? Trying to keep the pelvis in neutral. The hamstrings spreading on the mat. The quadriceps nice and soft. And then just checking in. Seeing, can you drop the ribs? Can we activate those abdominals? without getting the hip flexors involved. And that's super important to get the tush to kick on. Because in order for the leg to go into extension, we want the quadriceps to be able to lengthen and our abdominals to be able to stabilize our spine. So if every time we engage our abs, our hip flexors are grabbing too, that's not going to work to take the leg back behind us. 2 more. I'm going for about 8 here. And 1 more. Now we're going to stay there. I'm going to keep my elbows moving slightly forward, taking my shoulder blades with me into that upper back flexion. I'm going to drag my right leg softly into a tabletop position, take a small rotation to my right leg for 3. Activating the obliques. 2, really paying attention to my left leg, making sure it stays long. Keeping the right leg up, I'm going to rotate towards the left. Oh, that's a little harder. And 2. And 1. Sliding the right leg down. Inhale, release back. Exhale, curling back up again, trying to keep that right leg down, pelvis even. Having a tough time today. Coming back up. Exhale, rotate for 3 towards that left leg. 2. And 1. And then rotating to the right. 3. And 2. And 1. Taking that leg down. Inhale, release back. Exhale, curl up. Get the back of the neck nice and long and supported. Draw the ribs down so they're in the same line as your hip points, your ASIS, and reach your arms forward. Inhale the arms back. Exhale, circle them out to the sides for 3. Inhale the arms back. Exhale, circle 2. Inhale into the back of the ribs, circle 1. Now reverse direction. Send the arms out, trying to keep the ribs buried, back of the neck long. Just gazing slightly above my toes here. I could stabilize my torso, getting some arm movement. I got a little bonus one right here. Taking the arms forward, deepen the ribs a little bit more. Slide the arms back by the ears, and then slowly release with control. That extension. I'm going to go ahead and come up easily. I'm going to take that block right back underneath my pelvis now. So I'm going to lift the hips up and making sure that the block isn't too high. So if it's like that, I'm going to be in sort of an extended spine, which is really tough to get the abdominals to kick on. Conversely, you don't want it too low down because then you're sort of in this hammock position. So getting the block so that it's right square underneath your sacrum so the ribs can drop, but the pelvis is in a relative neutral position. I'm going to go ahead and reach my arms up to the ceiling. Let my shoulder blades be broad so my ribs have space to drop 1 leg at a time up into tabletop. Oop, I need to shift my back just a little bit. I'm all about being Goldilocks with the props. Make sure it's just right. Okay, so I'm going to keep my ribs down. I'm going to start to arc 1 leg down, simple toe tap. And the nice thing about this setup is when you can dip the leg a little further into hip extension, but it gives your body some space to explore dropping those ribs. Elevating the pelvis also eases up any residual tension on the low back, but try not to tuck here. That's a common error in this position. The idea is that we're setting up in a neutral, but your body's just kind of on a diagonal. Kind of similar to what we're looking for in a bridge position in the torso. 1 more each side, keeping the navel pulling in and up, ribs softening down. Taking this right into a single leg stretch, extending 1 leg long and back in. So this is where we start to really kind of highlight and see that interplay between how much the abdominals can stabilize your spine and how active your psoas wants to remain when you start taking the leg further away from the body. So you're your best judge here. If the leg goes down too low and your spine goes with it, we're losing the opportunity to engage your abdominals correctly. And it's also not giving your psoas the chance to sort of stretch and contract to its full potential. Let's finish out this last set. From there, you're going to extend the right leg long, flex the foot, going to keep the ribs dropping, and you're going to start to lower that leg down just to about hip height, maybe a little bit lower if you can maintain your spinal stability, and then lift it back up. Just 2 more times. So I've just anecdotally dealt with a little condition called snapping hip syndrome on my right leg since I was like 12 when I was a dancer. So if you get a clunk here, like I'm getting right now, try to turn your leg in a little bit and move it towards the midline, and that generally will relieve the clunk. Let's put your femur bone in a slightly better position. I'm going to hold my leg long to the place that feels challenging in my abdominals. Inhale, take the arms out. Exhale, gather in. Inhale, take the arms out, just a nice static hold. Exhale in, reaching that right leg long. Inhale out. Exhale in. Hug the left knee gently into your chest. Send the right leg long for just a quick hip flexor release. And slowly come back in. I'm just making sure we're on time. Send the opposite leg up to the ceiling. And then you're going to slowly lower that leg down to about hip height and then lift it up. And I'm really visualizing my psoas here, lengthening. So if you don't have a good picture of the psoas, I'll put a link to one in the class notes. But you want to think that it's less coming from your quad here, and that's more of a visualization and really thinking about that deep, deep, deep hip flexor muscle lengthening with control. Send the left leg long, let the ribs come down. Inhale, take the arms out. Exhale, pull in. Inhale. Exhale, pull in. 2 more. 1 more. Good, and then we're going to go ahead, lightly hug the right knee into the chest, send the left leg long. And then let that go. Okay, from there, I'm just going to sit up just a little bit, just enough to place the block in between my feet. And I'll lift it up for a second, have it this way. It was a great demo. And come down. So what the block is doing, it's maintaining my foot alignment approximately sit bone distance apart. So even if you think, oh my God, I have really wide hips and my feet need to be this wide, generally they don't. They need to be pretty narrow. This is actually even probably a little bit too wide. But the idea here is that we're keeping the feet really, really straight so that we can notice what the knees want to do here so we get proper hip extension in parallel as we go on. We're going to press the hands down. I'm going to let my ribs soften. I'm going to start to tuck my tailbone and go for an articulating bridge up, and then articulate and lower back down. So in this series, keep going up and rolling down. We're going to alternate between articulating bridging and a neutral pelvis lever. Works the glutes in a slightly different way and also asks for a different method of stabilization in the spine and in the torso. We're going for a total of 6, so 2 more. 6 of everything here. I'm going to try to keep myself to that. Pilates instructors are fabulous people, but none of us can count. And 1 more, so then we're going to stay up. So I'm really keeping that idea of keeping the ribs and the pelvis in one nice long straight line. I'm going to hinge down from my tail, pulse up for 6 and 5. Thinking about the lift coming from right underneath my sitting bones, keeping my knees directing forward and my ankles lightly hugging into the block. 2 and 1. Lower all the way down. Just let my back relax for a moment. Then I'm going to take my block just a little bit over to the left, put my left foot on the block. Right foot is in the same alignment as my left foot, just 1 foot is up on the block now. I'm going to roll the pelvis up for 6. I'm just going to continue to flow through this. 5. So not momentum necessarily, but just building a little bit of rhythm into the movement. So the body doesn't really get a chance to kind of like overthink it. And coming up and hold. Now we're going to tap that tailbone down for 6 and lift. 5. Hopefully feeling a little more work in that left glute. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, now the fun really starts. Keeping everything nice and stable. Long line between ribs and hips. I'm going to float my right leg up without moving anything. I'm going to roll the pelvis down. roll it up. Oh no, rolling down, rolling up, rolling down, rolling up, trying to keep my hips as level as possible, down and up. 2 more, and up. 1 more. All right, you guessed it, tapping down and up. So you can see I'm not going anywhere close to all the way down to the mat because it's burning already. So you do you, make it as small or big as you want. Woo. Good. 1 more, up you go, send the leg up. You're gonna lower straight leg down and lift. 5, 4, 3, we're almost there. 2, 1, cross the left ankle, the right ankle over the left knee, little pulses. 6, 5, pushing that right knee down. 4, keeping the hips level. 3, 2, 1, roll the pelvis all the way down. Send the right leg long, hug the left knee into your chest. Send the leg long up to the ceiling, curl the head, neck, and shoulders up for a moment, just get a little length. Come back down, setting up for side 2. All right, here we go. We're gonna roll the pelvis up, roll it down. So there's a lot of debate, bridging, glutes on, glutes off. In my world, glutes are on. So we can just check that little box off. But your butt cheeks aren't squeezing together, so there's a difference. What I'm thinking about here is as I roll my pelvis up, my sitting bones are narrowing, and I am engaging my glutes, but I'm counterbalancing that with a feeling of hugging into the midline so my knees don't get to splay. We're gonna do a little bit of external rotation in a moment, but just to clarify, we're trying to get some activity. I think that was 6. Coming up and hold, we're gonna tap the tailbone down in my glute max, my hamstrings, but also my adductors. So the entire back of the leg is really solid here. Let's do 2 and 1. Okay, fun part, keeping the hips level, float that left leg up, roll down the center of the spine and roll back up. So it's challenging to keep your hips level here, absolutely. If you think about your midline, so nose, sternum, belly button, pubic bone, all kind of maintaining on that central axis, it can help rather than fiddling so much with your pelvis, trying to tip it around like crazy, finding level. And 1 more. All right, tapping that tail down and up. 5, definitely counting. 4, don't want to do any more than 6. 3, 2, 1. Send that left leg long down and up for 6. We're almost there. 5, keep the hips level. 4, ribs in. 3, 2, 1, cross the left ankle over the right knee, lift the hips higher, press that left knee back, pulse. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rolling all the way down. Extend that left leg long, right leg up. And coming back in. Bring the block back into the center line, okay? And then what we're gonna do is you're gonna heel toe the feet away from the block. Let the knees turn out only so far as the feet stay grounded. I'm gonna press my arms down. Now I'm gonna go for an externally rotated bridge and rolling down. So now my glute max is kind of the primary lifter here and down. Thinking about gathering the glute tissue up and back and down. If you feel any pressure in your low back doing this, just don't go up as high and keep that nice rounded feeling in your lumbar spine. For some of us with certain sacral or low back conditions, this kind of compression of both legs externally rotated can almost create a pinching feeling in the back. So if that's happening to you, you can just take the feet wide and go up and down. It'll change the load profile on your glutes. So just giving that as an option. Coming up and hold, you're gonna keep the pelvis up, keep the ribs down, pulse the knees out. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and roll down. From there, heel toe your feet back together. You're gonna see if you can bring both feet up onto the block. If that's not possible because of the size of your feet or balance or whatever, you can just kick the block out in front of you and place both feet together on the floor, but it's kind of fun up on the block because you get a little more height. Squeeze the legs together now. You're gonna go up and rolling down and rolling up and rolling down. So it's getting a little more into the inner thighs and that situation back there that we sometimes call our thas, where our thigh meets our, you know what? It's also called the thuttix, where your thigh meets your buttocks. Use whatever cute verbiage you want. Hold. Gonna tap down and up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, bridging fiesta is over. Take the feet wide. Again, you're gonna let the knees knock over to one side. Oh my God, I'm out of breath. And the nice thing now is you can just let that left knee rest onto the block. Taking the knees back up. And then if you have the flexibility, you can just let that right knee rest onto the block. Perfect. All right, we're on track. We're doing good. Even some time to rest. Yay. Okay, so again, we're gonna roll to one side and come up, setting up for some side lying. Okay, so side lying is actually a psoas activator. So we're gonna do a little stretch after this series, but primarily what we're looking at is keeping that connection between the ribs and the torso and starting to work a little more of the side glute area that wraps around back to your thas area, okay? So just keeping in mind sort of what our goal is. Torso stability, hip mobility, particularly in extension. So I'm going to set my legs up in a side lying tabletop. I'm going to make sure I'm not collapsing on my top waist, lifting up my bottom ribs. 6 of everything, here we go, right into fire hydrants, lifting up and down. Imagining my greater trochanter, that's the bony landmark on the top, well, it's top here, but on the side of my thigh bone, rolling back into the pelvis. 2 more. Keeping the knee and ankle in one nice alignment. Now on the last one, I'm gonna hold. I'm gonna dip my knee down, so I'm in internal rotation. I'm gonna take my top heel on the high back diagonal, making sure my ribs don't flare, but I'm keeping everything nice and tucked in. Touch my top knee to my bottom knee, and then go back to that fire hydrant position. That was 1. Knees touch. Foot high back diagonal. Knees touch. Fire hydrant 2. Knee down, heel back and up, knee down, knee up 3, knee down, heel back and up, knee down, heel up 4, knee down, heel back and up, knee down, knee up 5, knee down, heel back and up, knee down, heel up 6. I'm gonna go ahead and send my top arm alongside my ear. I'm keeping this nice tabletop shape. I'm gonna go ahead and glide the leg back and in. So the arm up is adding extra challenge to keep that top rib buried in towards the spine. I'm not rounding, but I'm just staying very connected in the front of my body as I swing my top leg back, skimming it on an imaginary table or counter. 2 more. Last one. Now from there, I'm going to extend my leg long. So there's one nice long line between my hand and my heel. Point my foot, pulse the leg back for 6, 5. No movement in your back, no break in the ribs. 3, 2, 1. Bend the knee in, take a nice little twist. And then I'm going to roll over to the other side. So you're going to get to see my cool back of my sports bra for visual interest, and also so you get a different angle. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that my head is really aligned with my sacrum. So for some of us, that means that the head is a little further back than maybe we feel comfortable with. I'm gonna try to maintain equal curves in my side waists. I'm gonna lift the top leg up and down, keeping my ribs together. So hopefully, you know, it's a practice and a process for me too. I'm definitely not perfect. at any of this. Always exploring. And focusing on is that there isn't any movement in this series through here. So this relationship stays really solid. Last one, and I'm gonna tap my knee together. I'm gonna lift my heel on the high back diagonal, working right through there. Knees together, knee up, 1. Knees touch, heel back and up. Knees together, knee up, 2. Knee, heel, knee, 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 heel back, working from the sitting bone. Knee, knee, 5. In. Last 2. 1 more. Keeping that fire hydrant shape, sending my top arm up alongside my ear, a little bit in front of the body. I should see my bicep in my peripheral vision. I'm going to glide the leg back and in. So this is going to be different for everybody depending on how tight your hip flexors are and how much control you have over your ribs. So if we go back and you start seeing that happen, no bueno. You want to get those ribs in and really listen to your body. Only take the leg as far back as you're feeling contraction here, not here. Your back is working for sure. We just don't want any articulation there. Good. Knees in, send the leg long, point the foot pulsing back. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come in, take a nice little spiral. And then coming back up. Okay, second psoas stretch. So we already did one on the block. This one's gonna be lunging. I'm gonna place the block in front of me. If you have tender knees, you might wanna grab your shirt or a pillow off your couch, put it underneath the knee that's down. I'm on carpet and a really squishy mat. So I have enough padding, but I have sensitive knees. So just make yourself really comfortable here. So I'm gonna put my right foot up on the block, which gives my hip flexor a little bit more space. And again, we're not going for a dump stretch, even though that's beautiful and feels good. What we're going for is really trying to take your hip bone as far away from your femur bone as possible. So I'm going to attempt to keep my hips as square as I can. I'm going to lift my pubic bone up and I'm really going to get my ribs in. So a couple things, really common errors that like to happen here. This is one of them. Slump-a-dump. And then that's the other one. That's not so great either. So you want to try to keep that almost like a plate stacking. So the plate of your ribs over the plate of your pelvis. I'm going to take my left arm up. My left knee is down. My left arm is going to go up. I'm going to take a nice little side bend over to the right. And then coming back up. Okay, I'm going to stay in the same orientation so you guys can get a slightly different view. So I'm going to take my left foot up onto the block. Okay, now because the foot is a little bit higher, the pelvis may tip this way a little bit. That's okay, all right? What we don't want is the pelvis to really tip forward. So don't spill that bowl of soup forward. Try to keep it upright. If there's a little bit of tipping in the other two planes, okay, your coronal plane and the horizontal plane, the rotational plane, that's okay. We just don't want a lot of tipping in the sagittal plane here. If those words don't make sense, Google. Lift the right arm up and grab your wrist and take a little side bend over. If the balance is tricky, take your hand onto your thigh. If the balance is really tricky, you can do this up against a wall with your hand on the wall. Okay, and then coming back down. Okay, so what you're gonna do now is come down onto your tummy. You're gonna move the yoga block back so that your ankles are hugging gently into it and the inseams of your feet are gently hugging in. You're gonna slide all the way down onto your tummy. Take a moment to wiggle around, get it just right. Make a little pillow for your head with your hands and then hug your inner ankles into the block and try to get your pinky toes down. We're not gonna tuck, but you're gonna press the entire front of the pelvis into the block. Gonna lift both legs up and down and up and down, up and down. Try not not to bend the knees yet. So it's a small movement. We have 3, hugging the ankles in, 2. Keep the legs lifted and hold. So you can see my legs aren't lifted that much, but I'm definitely feeling a lot of work in my glutes and hamstrings. I'm going to hug that block in towards my pelvis and extend the legs long for 5. Bending, extending long 4. Bending, extending long 3. Bending, extending long 2. Bending, extending long 1. Keeping the block down, taking the feet about mat distance apart, and let them externally rotate slightly. I'm going to take my arms out in front of me. I'm going to drag my hands lightly on the floor as I lift my chest up into a small upper back extension, and then slide them back down. Inhale, just lightly gliding my palms on the mat, stretching my sternum forward, keeping my pubic bone anchored, and down. One more time, lifting up and hold. I'm going to lift my left leg up and down, right leg up, gazing down on my cheeks. No pinching in my low back. So if you're getting pinching, go down a little lower. Still getting pinching, all the way down. Just working the back line of the leg. 2, 2, 1 more. 1 from there, making a pillow with my head with my hands. Again, I'm going to bend my knees, flex my feet, really anchor the pelvis down. Feel the ribs lightly gathering in towards the front of the pelvis. So my belly button is slightly lifted and active. Pressing up, up, heels to the ceiling. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let the legs go and just swivel your hips from side to side. Okay, from there, pressing up onto all fours, you're going to grab that block. We're going to take the block in front of you, and it's going to be a frame for your arms. So palms lightly hug into the sides of the block, and then see if you can get your elbows right in alignment with your wrists. So we're not having elbows out to the side, we're gathering them in, and that helps to get the shoulder blades in correct position on the back. So we're going to go for a little bit of modified, like forearm plank-ish glute work stuff. That was a great description. One of the main errors I see here is that people like to tuck in an effort to stabilize their spine. We really want to maintain neutral. So you're not dumping, you're gathered up, but we're going for a long line between your hips and your shoulders, and you're not tucking because that actually turns the glute work off. So keep your tailbone lightly arcing up towards the ceiling, nice and stable in your ribs. You're going to glide the left leg back behind you. Peer back at your right thigh. Make sure it's not off to the side of the room, but straight up and down. Just 6 times. Leg lift. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep the leg lifted. Bend and extend. Bend and extend. Check in with your ribs. Are you tucking your pelvis? Are you leaking out your rib cage? Get it in. 2. Keep the knee bent. Now from the opposite thigh, you're going to start to rotate and come back to level. Just 2 more. Rotate and back to level. So working that right glute, taking the right side of the pelvis towards the right knee, open and down. Lengthen the leg long and glide it back in. Second side. Extend the right leg long. Check that form in your pelvis, leg up and down. 6, 5, 4. Limited or no movement in your low back. 2, 1. Keep the thigh lifted, bend and extend. 4, and 3, 2, 1. Now you're going to go ahead and you're going to start to rotate from the left side of your pelvis, dragging that right thigh across the midline, back to center. And rotate. And center left glute, shaken like a leaf. Rotate. And center and come down. From there, bring the block in between your inner thighs. Hands right underneath your shoulders. And then you're going to lift the hips into a plank. Hug into the block. Going to press back down to a pike or downward dog, hugging into that block. Right back into your plank. So just reestablishing neutral in the spine. Activating the inner thighs to help release out all of that outer hip work we did. Just one more. And in. Tapping the knees down. Take the block away. We're going to do a little outer hip stretch to finish. Okay, so both legs out in front of you. I'm going to take the right leg. You're going to cross it over the left knee, and you're just going to hug that knee close into your chest. So you're feeling a stretch in the outer hip, piriformis. If this isn't enough, you can tuck the opposite leg in. And if you want to go a little deeper, you can twist. Breathe. Coming back to center, send both legs long. Second side. Good. Foot over. You can tuck the opposite leg in if you like. Gonna wrap and hug. Ooh, my left hip. I love you, left hip, even if sometimes you don't love me. Coming back to center. Both legs long. And just take an easy stretch forward. Breathe. And then coming up. Crossing your legs. Job well done. Now get off your tush. Don't sit on it. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Be well.